How does anxiety feel? And that's a great question, right? We experience it different. But I have to applaud the fact that you're watching, whether you're at home or with a group, you're watching here online, and I want to thank you for doing that. Now, maybe it's a little easier because you're in the privacy of your home, perhaps, but nevertheless, you're making this effort. I know there was a time when I didn't want to know about it, and that's how it feels sometimes. We don't want the help. I was shame-based, and the last thing I wanted was someone to tell me how bad I really was. I was afraid they were going to find out there was something about me that was broken severely, and they were going to lock me up, throw me away, right? Just put me somewhere I'll never see my wife and children again. And it was a crippling fear. Was it rational? No, but it was a fear. And many people won't get the help because of that. You're not sure that anyone can relate to your specific situation. We tend to think that we're unique, that we're the only ones that are suffering this way, but you're not. You're not. This is more common than you think. And millions of people have overcome these things, and you can too. And as bad as it feels, sometimes you'd rather just leave it alone. But I encourage you, take what you learned today. Take what you learned today. And if you need help, if you need to see your doctor, psychiatrist for some medication, do it. It doesn't have to be forever, but to stabilize you. Or if you need to see a counselor to say that you learned some things today and you want to dig deeper, do it. This is wonderful. To get the help that you do. Get in a small group if you have to. Watch this program over again. Become a student. Become your own detective and figure these things out. God will help you as you pray and you learn these things. Now, deep down inside of me, I felt I was defective. I thought there was something wrong, that there was no hope. And it kept me from getting the help. And so I decided to go back to school. And I went for undergraduate, then I decided to go to graduate school. And that took a lot of courage because I knew in graduate school they'd make you go to counseling, because how are you going to be a counselor if you don't go to counseling, right? And I went ahead and worked up my courage to do that. And I'm so glad I did. And I hope the same for you, that you'll take this and get all the help you need. Now, when we think of anxiety and we ask about how it feels, it can feel differently. I remember I used to tell people that, I was depressed, but actually I was spending more time being anxious. And I didn't quite understand until later, years later, I found out that there was a hyper and a hypo. And that hypo kind of anxiety can lend to feel more like a depression. I mean, you can't stay in that hyperactive all the time. You have to come down sometimes. And so it can mask as a depression, and it feels like a depression. But when we're calm and that anxiety is gone, that's that chemical of oxytocin. Now, why am I talking about chemicals? Part of what I want to do today is demystify anxiety. I want to demystify it because we have all these, it's something out there, right? I remember being in the ministry and that back when I was younger, before psychology got more sophisticated in this area, that there was only two choices, right? One was it was your subconscious mind, right? And I remember praying, Lord, help my subconscious mind, help me. I didn't know what to do about it. The other was the demonic. And of course, as a minister, I couldn't poo-poo that. I know about the scriptures where it talks. And so thank God for Neil Anderson. And I recommend, if that's something you're interested in, Neil Anderson has written some wonderful books on bondage breaker and some of his other books that just really have a good sense of what we can do by putting on the full armor of God. So I would protect myself there too. But as I studied more in graduate school, and then it was actually later than graduate school, right at the turn of the century, and when the decade of the brain was over, that they learned so much, that we learned a little more about how the brain works and how it integrates with how we feel and how the past integrates with the present. All those things happen. And so I want to demystify in one way is to realize that there's chemicals going on. And so when we're calm, it's an oxytocin, and there's ways we can turn that on. And we'll talk about that later when we talk about emotional regulation. And that oxytocin will help us calm. Serotonin, right? And will help us calm. There's calming agents. GABA is another chemical that God has created in us that helps us calm. In the hyper phase, it's more of an adrenaline. And I think it's important to realize that once we're triggered, once we're in fight or flight, that adrenaline's pumping, and it just doesn't stop because we all of a sudden become conscious of, oh, I don't have to worry about this. It still might be there. And so there's a wave. And so a lot of times we talk about riding the wave. And that's what you need to do. Sometimes you ride the wave of that, and it dissipates, it goes away. And then there's the hypo, and that's the acetylcholine. And that's one that calms us down. And sometimes, when we get into a hypo, we become overwhelmed. And so now we're overwhelmed. In the hyper, there's more of a danger arousal going on, right? And in the calm, it's more of a social engagement. And so that social engagement's easy in the sense that we feel safe. And I want to talk about that a lot during this seminar. I've incorporated it into the program a lot more, and that is this feeling of safety. Now, we're going to talk about relaxation, but more than relaxation, that's about the body. Safety is about the mind. And you'll be surprised how many times we don't feel safe. Now, it's not because necessarily we're in an unsafe situation. We're reacting to a situation that was unsafe before, but isn't now. When you were a little child and you were told not to go into the ocean or into the lake, and you got closer and closer, and maybe your siblings were egging you on, and you went in there and you fell and you swallowed water and you were choking, and mom came up, dad was all upset and everyone was teasing you, and you heard about it over and over again. Is it a wonder the next year you were afraid of the water? But then, like myself, I was afraid of water. I didn't learn to swim till high school. Now, can you imagine standing in waves that are only, maybe 6 inches tall? And yes, you're only a couple feet tall, right? But now you're 6 foot tall and you're still afraid of that. See, it's out of proportion. But the mind doesn't think that way sometimes. We have to help challenge it, and we need to mature those fears. And so safety is important. So in calm, we have social engagement. In hyper, it's danger. In hypo, it's overwhelmed. And as we learn about the brain, we'll learn about the vagal nerve and how in calm, it's that ventral vagal that's calming us down. In the hyper, that fight flight, it's a sympathetic nervous system. The gas pedal is on. And in hypo, it's that dorsovagal, and that parasympathetic nervous system is kicking in. And when we're regulated and calm, we're calm, right? We're regulated. And when we're hyper, it's that fight and flight. It's an energy, it's that adrenaline. And when we're in hypo, it's this collapse. It's this disintegrating, this dissociating. And I know when I was at my worst, I would faint, or I would dissociate like I was out floating off the air. And maybe you've been there. And, God can help you with that. And today you'll learn more and more about that. And so you have a diagram here you can look at. And you can see that there's all these different things that can be caused by anxiety. And when we first start into our training here, we'll be talking about emotional recognition. And one way you can recognize it and head it off at the pass is by looking at some of the physical symptoms. Headache, irritability, maybe depression, lightheadedness, dry mouth, choking sensation, shortness of breath, pounding heart, sweating. You can see the degree of anxiety going up on some of these. But as you see these physical things, you see the root word of emotion is to move. To move. It gets us to move. An emotion is a sensation. It's in the body. Then later we put feelings to it. Oh, I felt sad. I felt anxious. But it starts in the body. And as we learn more about our body and we learn to relax in that, we'll be working with the body a lot. And it will help us here. Heart palpitations, chest pain, tension, nausea, stomach pain, that's more aggressive anxiety, isn't it? Loss of appetite or craving, that's that social, that continuing anxiety, if you will. That generalized anxiety sometimes causes that. Irritable bowel, and then, shakiness or trembling. You feel weak in the legs, right? All those different kind of symptoms. And so you want to become aware of them. And you want to be thinking about episodes in the past when you've had it, where you can kind of think about it. What did it feel like? And what did it feel like? So you can become more aware. You can become more aware of these things. So we want to become aware where we'll know more and more what anxiety feels like. So then after recognizing, we can regulate it.